Most Americans are unhappy with Donald Trump's policies. 60% dislike tariff tirade poll. U.S. envoy says Trump questioning why Iran has not capitulated. Iran and U.S. views on sanctions relief differ, Iranian official. India delays U.S. trade talks after Supreme Court rejects Trump tariffs, source says. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's ex-wife Fergie also undone by Epstein ties. A new public opinion poll shows that a majority of Americans are dissatisfied with how President Donald Trump is running the country, particularly on everyday economic issues. The ABC News/Washington Post/Ipsos poll was conducted shortly before the U.S. Supreme Court struck down President Trump's earlier global tariffs. The survey found that around two-thirds of Americans disapprove of how the president is handling inflation. 6 in 10 disapprove of his approach to tariffs, while 62% are unhappy with his handling of foreign relations. Majorities also disapprove of his performance on immigration and the broader economy. On none of the major policy issues tested did President Trump receive clear public approval. However, the poll also found limited confidence in Democrats. When asked who they trust more to solve the nation's biggest problems, respondents were almost evenly divided between President Trump, Democrats in Congress, or neither option. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff said on Saturday that President Donald Trump is questioning why Iran has not backed down in the face of Washington's military buildup, aimed at pressuring Tehran into a nuclear agreement. The comments come as the United States and Iran resumed Oman-mediated talks in Geneva this week, seeking to avert possible military action. The talks followed the deployment of U.S. aircraft carriers, fighter jets, and additional weapons to the region. In an interview on Fox News with host Lara Trump, Witkoff said President Trump was curious why Iran had not yielded under pressure, despite repeated warnings of severe consequences if no deal is reached. Witkoff also confirmed that he met Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of Iran's last Shah, at President Trump's direction. Pahlavi has positioned himself as a critic of Iran's current leadership and recently said he was ready to lead the country toward a secular democracy. Iran and the United States remain divided over sanctions relief in ongoing talks aimed at limiting Tehran's nuclear program, a senior Iranian official told Reuters on Sunday. The official said both sides hold differing views on how and when U.S. sanctions should be lifted, adding that further negotiations are planned for early March amid growing fears of a military confrontation. Iran and the United States resumed negotiations earlier this month as Washington stepped up its military presence in the Middle East. Tehran has warned it would strike U.S. bases in the region if attacked. The last round of talks showed that U.S. ideas regarding the scope and mechanism of sanctions relief differ from Iran's demands, the Iranian official said, stressing the need for a mutually agreed timetable. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said on Friday that Tehran expects to present a draft counter-proposal within days. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump said he was considering limited military strikes if diplomacy fails. India has delayed plans to send a trade delegation to Washington, citing uncertainty after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump, a senior trade ministry source said on Sunday. The postponement marks one of the first concrete responses by an Asian country to the court's ruling. It also follows President Trump's announcement on Saturday of a temporary 15% tariff on imports from all countries, the maximum allowed under current law. The decision to defer the visit was taken after discussions between officials of the two countries, the source said, adding that no new date has been set. The Indian delegation had been due to travel this week for talks aimed at finalizing an interim trade agreement. Under the proposed framework, the United States would reduce punitive tariffs of 25% on some Indian exports linked to New Delhi's purchases of Russian oil. U.S. tariffs on Indian goods were expected to be cut to 18%, while India agreed to buy up to $500 billion worth of U.S. products over 5 years, including energy, aircraft, precious metals, and technology items. As scrutiny intensifies around Prince Andrew, his former wife Sarah Ferguson is no longer publicly associated with him, following renewed attention on her own past links to Jeffrey Epstein. Sarah Ferguson, widely known as Fergie, married Prince Andrew in 1986. The couple have 2 daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. They separated in 1992 and divorced in 1996, but remained close for decades, continuing to share a residence until last year. Recent releases of U.S. government documents related to Epstein have renewed focus on the former couple's associations with the disgraced financier, who died in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. The documents, released in January, include references to Ferguson's past contact with Epstein. According to the files, Ferguson appeared to have visited Epstein in the United States in 2009, shortly after his release from prison following a conviction for soliciting a minor. The documents suggest her daughters were also present at the time. No criminal allegations have been brought against Ferguson. Prince Andrew, the younger brother of King Charles III, was arrested earlier this week by police investigating whether he improperly shared confidential government documents with Epstein while serving as a UK trade envoy. He has not been charged and has denied any wrongdoing, saying he regrets his association with Epstein